capitalism could not survive in a culture dominated by mysticism and altruism.
The world is changing. The age of the consumer is over.
Stand up for freedom, no matter what the cost. It can help to save your soul and maybe your country.
Do you understand the forces shaping events in the world around you? Do you want to know the answers or just the issues? Do you know the secrets of prosperity economics? Live from Salt Lake City and at freecapitalist.com across the nation, you're listening to the free capitalist himself, Rick Koerber.
Hey everybody, it's time to wake up and turn your brain on. You're listening to Free Capitalist live here on Facebook. I know it's been a few days since we've been online, and we've got a lot going on, so we've got a lot to do and a lot to accomplish today. I'm going to actually turn this around this way so I can actually follow some notes so we can cover everything that we need to cover here on the broadcast. Pardon the hand grab there. All right, no more hands. Hey Richard, welcome. Glad to have you online. Hey Brad. So we've got a big agenda to cover today. As you saw from my title of today's broadcast, there is a lot to cover. Matter of fact, I know that we have taken a long time. We've been on the live broadcast for like an hour each time up until now. So I'm going to go fast. Yeah, my beard has come back just a little bit. It grows fast, man. You know, it's like Popeye and spinach. I just take a 5-hour energy drink and that just stops popping out. So listen, lots going on, lots to update you on. We're going to update USAV Koerber and developments there. Since the last time we did a live broadcast, we're going to update USAV Bundy and a lot going on. Hey Alma, and things going on there. We're going to talk about an update on fundraising and that kind of thing. Hey Shandy, welcome. And we're going to talk about an action plan going forward, a plan both in USAV Bundy and a plan for the updates that we're doing here on Free Capitalist Live. I'm looking at lighting. It seems like I'm a little dark here. I don't know. It is a little dark here in Las Vegas. I will say, you know, hey Kelly, we do these broadcasts here live from the Free Capitalist Mobile Command Center in Las Vegas. We've been down here in Vegas now for almost 2 weeks. And let's see, where'd you go? Oh, got your back. All right. And, hey, Shaddy, glad you got my message. So we're down here, and I know on the introduction it says live from Salt Lake City and Free Capitalist Land everywhere. Well, we are technically live from Las Vegas right now. So that light behind me, is it too bright, Brad? How about that? Now we just have a nice evening atmosphere, a little cool, scintillating Free Capitalist broadcasting for you. So now we'll also do a question and answer. Hi, Gina. Oh, you're saying hi to Eric. Well, never mind. I won't say hi to you then. Hey, Joe. We will do a little question and answer here at the end. So if you got questions, questions for me, please save them for the end. If you want to engage others here in the Free Capitalist community online, I encourage the conversation. I'll try to chime in afterwards and answer questions if you want to type your comments below. But again, if you want questions for me, I'll probably miss a lot of those. Hey, Berto Rapp, nice to see you, man. Hi, Michael. Welcome from New Mexico. And Petunia Black, welcome back. And so, again, I may miss your questions as I get going into the presentation here. I've got a list of things to cover and a list of things I want to go over because it's been a little while since we've been on. Hey, Trent. And, again, I may miss your questions, so save them for the end. And if you want to come on live, if you've got an iOS device, which means like an iPhone or an iPad, and you're watching this live, let me know when it's time for frequently asked questions or question and answer, and I'll bring you on live to the broadcast if you want. So let me know. We'll do that towards the end. So by way of getting started, I wanted to give you guys an update on developments in the United States of America versus Claude R. Koerber. As you know, I have been engaged in a battle with the federal government for about a decade now. Just by way of the quick background, the free capitalist is a taste, it seems, that they cannot quench. And the government has been coming after me and calling me everything but who I am. And they tried to bring charges in state court against me back in 2008. They failed to do that when the head prosecutor in the state of Utah, the Attorney General, reviewed their case and said that it lacked evidence, and the lead investigator had said that their theory was long on conclusions but short on facts. That's a quote. Then they took the case to the United States Attorney's Office in the District of Utah, who was able to secure an initial 3-count indictment, tried to get me to plea bargain. I would not. And when that didn't work out, they indicted me again with a 20-some count indictment and alleged all kinds of financial impropriety related to my businesses, Franklin Squires and Founders Capital. They accused me of running a $100 million Ponzi scheme. And so forever, it seems, for the last decade, whenever you pick up the Salt Lake Tribune, they should have a separate section entitled, the free capitalist section. And we fought that. An attorney, a dear friend of mine named Marcus Mumford, and I fought that from 2009 going forward. And the people who were the enemies of the free capitalists, who are also enemies of liberty, quite frankly, they have done everything that they could try, in my opinion, in their power, to get people like you to stop listening to people like me. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but anyway, to kind of fast forward a little bit, then we beat that case, and they indicted us again. They indicted me again in 2013. We beat that case. The case was dismissed in 2014 with prejudice. Government didn't like that too much, so they appealed the case to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. 10th Circuit Court of Appeals found that the judge, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals found that the judge needed to correct a couple errors, so the 10th Circuit remanded it back to that judge. Somehow that judge got, after 6 years, removed from my case. The case got reassigned shortly after I got involved in helping on the legal defense team for Ammon Bundy up in Oregon for the Malheur Wildlife Refuge case. Morgan Philpott, another dear friend of mine, and Marcus Mumford and I were up there working on that case. And shortly after that victory, we got word that they had the district court here in Utah had changed its mind, and they were now going to allow the government to even prosecute me one more time. So in January of this year, January 2017, I was indicted again. Same charges, no new allegations, same 10-year-old political battle I've had going on, and we'll do a broadcast maybe one of these days in the near future giving you the whole history there, because it's quite insightful if you want to learn the playbook of the enemy and how they work and what they try to do. They go after two things, my friends. They go after your reputation and they go after your finances. Because if they can divorce you from your friends and they can divorce you from your finances, then you're a lot easier target. So be aware when you see yourself judging others, or when you see others going through hell because of some kind of legal problem, be aware that that's the technique the adversary uses against us. And so anyway, with that said, I went to trial. They scheduled the trial, interestingly enough, to correspond with one of the Bunkerville USA v. Bundy trials down here in Nevada, to try to keep me and my attorney friends, Morgan and Marcus, off the defense team down here, since we, of course, with the grace of God, secured the acquittal of the Bundys up in Oregon, and the co-defendants and other great, I don't mean to say we did it by ourselves, obviously other great people helping us, obviously lots of good things contributed to that, but with that said, they brought me to trial in August of this year. Again, charged me with operating a $100 million Ponzi scheme in my quest for liberty and freedom and the American way. And they got me off the air. They said that was their case. We found a government memo that said they didn't care whether I'd broken the law or not. They wanted to get me off the air and out of business. That was their goal. And I used to have a radio program on the AM airwaves called the Free Capitalist Radio. And their goal was to get me to be quiet. And then ultimately their goal was to get me not involved in the legal defense of our friends, the Bundys. And that wasn't their only goal, but certainly that was one of the things they were trying to accomplish. Now, I went to trial. The trial was 2 months long, and at the end of that trial, some of you, dear friends, came and supported me as we waited for that verdict. My wife and a couple of my children, all of my family really, but a couple of my children got the privilege of being there torturously in court every day during trial and every day during the jury deliberation. And at the end of that, the jury was not able to reach a verdict. There was a hung jury, and the judge declared a mistrial. So we waited and waited to find out what the United States was going to do at that point. I came down here to get myself fully immersed in the legal battle that is now waging down here in Nevada. Morgan had already come down here. He'd already been on the team. A lot of you had already raised money to help Morgan. He came down here basically on his own and is supported only by donations from you, the supporters and lovers of liberty. And he'd been down here and already doing some work with another gentleman who was on Ammon Bundy's legal defense team, Dan Hill. And we'd also worked with some of the others, etc. And anyway, I came down, brought the Free Capitalist Command structure here, Mobile Command Center, down to Las Vegas, and we're getting ready to get started. And interesting enough, there ensued a big debate about whether or not I was... Top secret phone call interrupting there. That top secret phone call, have to wait for a minute. So anyway, what ends up happening is there's a debate about whether or not I can participate formally on the legal team. And I won't go into the details about why that was the case. You can use your imagination. But I will say that part of the reason I stopped doing some broadcasts for a while is we wanted to make sure that we were complying with all the rules that were necessary to make sure that I was going to be enabled to help with the legal team. And a lot of you, by the way, thank you, many of you, raised money to help me get down here and be part of this fight in person and with all the scintillating free capitalist wit and wisdom that I could muster. And for those of you who think that's, well, anyway, that's supposed to be funny. You know, jovial, happy. Anyway, yeah, thanks for a few of the hearts there. So, hello, Patty. So what ends up happening is the court does decide late last week that I was able to participate and participate fully as a paralegal to help this awesome friend of mine, Morgan Philpott, and Dan Hill, and the other members of the defense team, the joint defense team here. And, of course, you have people like Maxine with the Oregonian. Hi, Maxine, if you happen to watch this. And it's really funny that my courtroom appearance, mine, you know, paralegal, who's the free capitalist, right? My appearance in the courtroom, one day, well, actually I was there Monday a week ago, but one day this last week for the final day of the evidentiary hearing, hi Julie, and I showed up and I had to put a little sticky note over my camera and over my microphone based upon the court order, happy to comply with all the court orders. And Maxine of the Oregonian thought that was worth tweeting about. Hey John. And so we've had to change course a little bit in terms of me doing daily broadcasts, etc., regarding updates. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute, about what our go-forward plan is here. Because on a list of priority scale, we want to make sure that we are using our talents and our abilities as effectively as possible. As any the reason I keep getting interrupted there is I'm getting a phone call from someone who's in the detention facility. Don't you worry, I can go and see them as soon as we're done here. We may get periodic interruptions here while those calls are coming through, but don't you worry. I've already talked to both Ammon and Ryan earlier today. We are fully engaged in some strategic, intense preparation for the trial that the jury has just been selected and impaneled for, and opening statements for USA v. Bundy start Tuesday, as most of you know. And so, sorry, they don't know when they can call because, unfortunately, they're still being treated in a way that they cannot predict when they have access to a telephone. Yeah, I know, Brett, I could answer it. Hey, Barb from Colorado. I could answer it, but the boys don't understand, and they would appreciate what we're doing here. So let's just talk about what's going on. Okay, first thing I want to talk about is the United States of America versus Koerber. So as soon as the day my status down here was being debated, we got word, and a press release was issued by the U.S. Attorney's Office up in Utah, that they had decided that it was worth attempting to prosecute me again. So it now does appear that the United States Attorney's Office in Utah wants to go at this again, and they are asking the court for a scheduling conference and to set a new trial date for me. We don't know much more about it than this, although rather interesting. We have now exhausted all of the judicial resources in the District of Utah. There is no federal judge in Utah who is willing to preside or able to preside over my case anymore. That's one of the side effects of coming after somebody for 10 years and all the things that's happened, including the things that have disqualified judges and caused judges to recuse themselves and all this and that. So there is not currently a judge, a federal judge in the state of Utah, either a full-time judge or a senior status judge who is able or willing to preside over my case. So as of right now, we are waiting for a judge from outside the District of Utah to be assigned to my case to bring me to trial a second time, and for the government to prosecute me now for, I think it's the 6th time. And it depends on how you count, right? They might argue those numbers different because they like to count differently. You know how government math is. But sufficeth it to say that is now a new reality that we have to prepare for, which is fine. Some of you know my motto in this whole proceeding has been time is on the side of truth. And those of us who love liberty and fight for liberty, one of the things we can have confidence in is that time is indeed on the side of truth. And over time, the truth gets stronger and easier to discern for everyone, at least, who's looking for the truth. So that is interesting. And somebody asked me the other day who wasn't real familiar with my case, it's still a little different. Somebody who is familiar with some of these other liberty-based cases, they're saying, hey, it's kind of different. I see here on the discussion boards you ripped a lot of people off, and you really hurt a lot of people financially. And I just invite you to consider that not everything that is said on the internet is true. For the last 10 years, for the majority of the last 10 years, I was under an order from the court that did not enable me to defend myself against those allegations with virtually everyone who was involved. But one of the reasons there was a mistrial in the last case is the government was not able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury of my peers, and the reason that is the case is because that is not true. It is one of the tactics of our adversary to destroy a person's reputation, and that is what they have tried to do. And so I invite those of you who come across those rumors, first of all, if you have any questions, I always tell people, why don't you ask the source, get some information there first before you, start going off half-cocked. And then secondly, use your brain a little bit. Let me just give you some red flags. Let me just give you a few things to think about just in terms of my case. Now, I know this is a little self-serving, but I'm a capitalist, right? So it's okay to be a little self-serving, I think, right? Just a little. I want you to think about this for a minute. I want you to think about just a few things that might raise some red flags in your mind, if it's on, if you're thinking about these allegations, right? And it's not just against me. You can use these same tactics whenever the United States federal government comes after any free citizen. But just think about this. They've been coming after me for 10 years. And when we went to trial, you want to know how many people they put on the stand who said, oh, Rick lied to me. Oh, Rick ruined me. Oh, this was the largest Ponzi scheme ever. Yeah. Big fat zero. They did put on some witnesses who did testify to some things. There were two that didn't seem too particularly friendly towards me. Interestingly enough, those two witnesses were both witnesses that have pled guilty, admittedly, to fraud. And one of them, their sentence is being held over their head for the last 5 years based on how they testify in my case. But again, just should be a red flag. Number one, come at somebody for 10 years. Number two, they've lost 5 times. Number three, this isn't my word, this is public record. A sitting federal judge has already ruled that their efforts to prosecute me started with them breaking the law and violating the Constitution. That same federal judge, Clark Waddups, issued a ruling that was left completely intact by the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals on this point. And the point is this, that they violated the government, the prosecutors in this case, violated the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution and violated my due process rights, which basically are my fairness rights, just to bring charges in the first instance, that first indictment back in May of 2009. So red flag number 3. And red flag, whatever your next red flag is, well, that's enough. I don't want this whole broadcast here to be about me and my case. I just wanted to give you an update. But those red flags are things that are important. And see, our friends understand that. People aren't our friends, they're not paying attention. Or people who aren't yet our friends, they're not paying attention. People like Maxine, for example, who writes for Oregonian Live, she works for the press, and we're constantly disappointed in people who work for the press who actually don't investigate the truth. They just report the propaganda. Now, they don't always believe that. They don't always see that their way. But even Maxine, for example, she refers to me in the news stories based on the government's propaganda, the government's headline, and the government's labels and tags, but she doesn't actually look into the matter. Remember, this is the same gal who was the primary beat reporter up in Oregon for the Bundy case and said, "Oh, big surprise, acquittal, acquittal." Well, yes, the people that were surprised were the people that were believing the government pablum the whole time, and the people that were reading that government pablum all the time. So if you're writing pablum and reading pablum, and it's the government's pablum, yeah, you might be surprised when the truth is different than what you accepted without questioning your assumptions. And so it is in my case, so it is in many cases where the United States government is being motivated by things other than truth and fairness. Oh, another thing, the judge in my case also did say that it would be impossible at this point to move forward with a fair trial because the government had already done things intentionally and repeatedly to ensure that I couldn't receive a fair trial. Now, these aren't my words. These aren't off Facebook. Okay? These aren't just words of someone who likes me. Matter of fact, these are words of an Article 3 sitting federal judge who presided over the case for 6 years and entered legal findings on the public record. It might be worth thinking about. It might mean something to some of you. So with all that said, let's transition now to the question of why am I talking about all that? Why did I spend the time to give you the update on the United States of America versus Claude R. Koerber, which is me, by the way, Claude, Rick, Free Capitalist, all scintillating names to refer to the same scintillating mind. Why am I telling you this? Well, we're going to change the way we're moving forward here. Jewel and I have talked about this at great length. I've talked about it with some of my close free capitalist friends and advisors. And we have decided to change our approach. And so that you aren't caught off guard, I thought I'd do a few broadcasts to explain that change in our approach and then invite you to come and change with us. But the first change is it's a sobering acknowledgement or a sobering reality, which is this. My friends, if we want to win in the cause of liberty, we have got to change our course. Because even the most sincere, dedicated individuals who have advocated for freedom and liberty over the last several decades, over the last century, have been losing ground and losing momentum. And so our battle plan, I suggest to you, needs adjusting. And it needs adjusting in several ways. And the first way I want to talk to you about tonight is we've got to be smarter about who we clue in to our battle plans. We've got to be a little bit smarter about who we put our pearls in front of, if you hear what I'm saying. We've got to be a little smarter about how much time and energy we spend feeding those who fight against us. And so, one thing we need to do, in my opinion, and one thing Jewel and I and the Free Capitalist Project are going to now start doing, is we're going to be more selective in who it is we spend time and energy with on live streams, on face-to-face, in working, because we've noticed something. And I noticed it just this last week. I did one simple post about the mistreatment that I viewed with my own eyes of two men who I care about. And that post was watched by the FBI. That post was watched by the U.S. Marshal Service. That post was reviewed by officers of a federal court. And I get it. I understand why that happened. And shame on me for not being smarter than that. Shame on me for not being more responsible than that. I just gave a lecture over one of our live broadcasts not more than a week ago about how we need to up our game and we need to be responsible and we need to be so good that when we advertised our message for freedom that people who look for goodness could see goodness. And I would say people who look for intelligence need to be able to see intelligence. So it's time for the free capitalist to wake up and turn his brain on a little bit more. And so we thought about this, and we said, you know what? That's right. Let's change our tactics. Number one, let's change our tactics so that doesn't compromise my ability to use my talents to be involved in the legal fight. And let's change our tactics also so that we're not sitting here spending our time and energy feeding the trolls and feeding the people who would stand against us. So I just invite those of you to hear what I'm saying and not what I'm not saying. We're going to be making some changes, and I invite you who love liberty to come along with us. And don't just be takers and consumers of what we offer, but be producers and come and join with us. So you'll see more about what that means in just a little bit. I'm going to keep going through my list here, and you'll see practically some of it that's going to start here today. But I would just say in sum, it's time for us in the liberty movement to toughen up and to step it up a notch. And so that's what we're going to do. All right. Now, update on USA v. Bundy real quick. Again, because of what I've told you, I'm not going to go into too many details except for to say this. There are plenty of people doing daily live feeds. People like John Lamb, people like, sorry, I was going to try to make a joke, so my umming was me self-editing whether the humor was going to translate, whether I wanted to be accountable for my attempt at humor. Kelly, I definitely know your name, but I was going to try to tease you a little bit, but then I decided there's too many people watching, and I didn't want to be too... I don't want to embarrass myself because you know my sense of humor when it's something like my father-in-law's joke about how you catch a rabbit making sounds of carrots. Anyway, yeah, let's leave all that aside. That gets too embarrassing for me. So anyway, there are plenty of live streams every day from people like John Lamb and Kelly Stewart and many others who invest their time and energy to give us daily updates on the USA v. Bundy case. So I invite you to listen to them and to tune into them. I will not be doing daily public updates for USA v. Bundy because I'm on the trial team. I will be doing everything I can to use my talents in the battle to free these men in court and to use the processes of our legal system to win this legal fight. And so I will be doing some additional things as far as the Free Capitalist Project goes. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes here on this broadcast. But so update on USA v. Bundy. We're getting ready for opening statements, which will start Tuesday. I will tell you the defense is working together. There's a united strategy here, and there is united effort, and I'm very satisfied that the attorneys involved and those that will be making opening statements on behalf of the defense are prepared, have a very clear vision of what we're doing, what we're presenting to the jury, why we're presenting what we present, the way we present it. There's a lot of faith and prayers that have supported the efforts so far. Please keep them coming, and stay tuned starting Tuesday for daily updates from our friends that will also be covering that, who aren't part of the legal team. So with that said, my next topic here is about getting meaningfully involved. A lot of you have said, how can we help? How can we be involved? And one of the things we have said is, well, you could donate money, because there is no shortage of, let me rephrase that. There is a severe shortage of resources when you have to battle the federal government, because the federal government steals, right, takes, confiscates, taxes, enjoins to accomplish whatever it wants to accomplish. And free citizens, you see, we don't have the right to do that, and those of us who love liberty don't do that. And so we have said you could donate money, and that's true. But there are other things you can do. You can donate time and brain power and help, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And but I want to just cover here for a second an invitation that I want to extend from me to you, so you can hear it directly from me. Would you please ask yourself if you are meaningfully involved right now in the cause of freedom? And the next question would be, are you willing? And my question to you is, will you please consider taking a step forward? Will you become more meaningfully involved in the cause of liberty? I'm going to talk to you now about what that means to me and what my invitation here tonight is to you. But I have to do that, I want to give you a little bit of fun background. As some of you know, I am married to a wonderful gal named Jewel. Jewel is the granddaughter of a wonderful man who has passed on. His name is Dr. W. Cleon Skousen. He was a hero of mine not because I knew him, and frankly not because of his religious affiliation that I happen to share, but because he had written several books that have made a big difference. In my young adult life. When I was about 19 years old, I came across a book that he had written called The 5,000-Year Leap, and another book that he had written called The Making of America. Making of America is a textbook about the history of America from the perspective of the founders. And those books had made a tremendous impact on my life. And then I read an old book that I didn't think was really relevant to our day. Boy, was I wrong. That was called The Naked Communist, a tremendous book. Highly recommend it to everyone within the sound of my voice. Yes, there's some information in there that's dated, but the message of that book, the information in that book, the paradigm shift you have by reading that book is highly important for people who love liberty and want to stand up in the cause of freedom. So with that said, Dr. Skousen was a hero of mine, and I had started to do seminars with a friend of mine named Les McGuire. And during our financial seminars, we met some people who were friends with Dr. Skousen. Now, I need to put an asterisk here, because I'm going to connect this to the first part of this broadcast, when I said that the federal government has been trying to hurt my reputation. Well, why? Okay. The second thing I said that they were trying to do is they were trying to hurt my finances. Why? Well, my friends, in the freedom movement, those are the two powerful tools we have to build networks of influence and to organize ourselves to go up against those who are hurting families and hurting freedom in our country. Reputation and relationships and finances are tools that can be used to advocate for liberty. Hi, Michelle. Long time no see. Hi, Effie. And so, make no mistake about it. That's also what the federal government's doing to the Bundys. That's why you've got men who are no danger to people and who are no flight risk. They want to take this fight on, who have been in prison for 2 years. Because two things happen when you hold these men in prison for 2 years. One thing is you make them financially crippled because they are not able to produce. No matter how strong, creative, or brilliant they are, they're less able to produce than if they were free. One of the reasons free people love freedom is the ability to produce. Right? It's a moral virtue to be able to create value in the world that we live. And so when you put someone in confinement, you take away their ability to engage freely in the marketplace. Second thing they do is by tainting them and calling them dangerous and so dangerous that you have to hold them in prison, you hurt their reputation, so it makes it harder for people who are just being exposed to the story to see the truth, because they get afraid and they start to think poor things or bad things. And the narrative, they get to control the narrative by doing those things. So they control the resources and they control the narrative, and that's a huge battle plan, a battle tactic that our enemy uses. Now, one of the things they try to do with me by labeling me a Ponzi schemer and labeling me a fraud is the same thing. Now, interestingly enough, when I was building my financial company, what we were doing, we were teaching people how to get financially free so they could get more involved in the freedom movement. And by and large, out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that attended our university and our institute, and out of the tens of thousands of people who attended our seminars, and out of the millions of people that listened to our radio program, they were becoming more free. Many of them became more free. Many of them were able to get more deeply engaged in the cause of freedom. Now, of course, that's a problem for the status quo, right? That's a problem for the powers that be. If you start to free people's time up, if you start to free up people's resources, and they can dedicate more time and resources to the battle for freedom, and then if you enable them to start building relationships with each other and getting organized, if you're the enemy of freedom, you've got a problem, right? Well, on the other hand, that's a message to us, my friends. If we want to up our game, we have to understand the value of relationships and reputations, not just public reputations. I mean reputations among those who love liberty. Reputation among those whose opinions matter more than those who aren't thinking and those who just cast aspersions and pass judgment. Reputation is powerful, and financial resources are very powerful, because when combined together responsibly, morally, and empowered by the faith of good people, you can use those resources to accomplish a tremendous amount in the cause of liberty. And so what ended up happening is I met Dr. Skousen, and he, bless his heart, at one point in time came to one of our seminars. And the reason I tell you this is because it was a great honor to me, but it was also an interesting experience, and I'm going to share it with you. Dr. Skousen is sitting in the front row of one of my seminars, and one of the things he's doing is he's taking notes, and I'm thinking to myself, geez, I should trade places with him. I should be sitting down and taking notes from him. But in any event, what happens is I start to realize something. And that is that there's a great power in synergy and working together, to the point that I was able to use Dr. Skousen's works and Dr. Skousen's teaching to educate myself and to learn some things that when I was teaching them, Dr. Skousen came up to me at one of the breaks and he said, hey, question, where did you learn that? Where did you get that information? I said, well, I got it from you, Dr. Skousen. He says, where did you get it? And I told him which book and which chapter, and it was funny because what I had done is I was able to take something that he had produced and created that was valuable to me, and I was able to build on that or enhance that or magnify that and give something back to him. And we were able to edify each other. And that's what happens in the freedom movement if we actually focus on principles and focus on working together and focusing on getting organized. And the reason I say that as kind of a history is one of the things we developed out of that whole thing was a lecture series called the 13 Principles. And those of you who haven't listened to the 13 Principles, not selling anything to you here. We put it out in the marketplace perfectly free. You can go to SoundCloud right now, and you can just type in Liberty Reef Broadcasting, and all of the 13 Principles of Prosperity lectures are there for free. I highly recommend those of you who want to get more meaningfully engaged in the cause of liberty, take some time and listen to those lectures. They're not perfect. Heaven forbid that you have to listen to me as long as those lectures go to learn these things. I wish I had something better to recommend you to, but they are good. And the principles there are true, and they're taught in a way, the best way I could teach at the time, to open your mind to some concepts that we as a people have been trained, taught, and educated to turn our minds off to. And so it's an awakening experience. So please, if you want to get more meaningfully engaged in the cause of liberty, accept that invitation and just take a listen and see if it doesn't create some value for you. Now, with that said, I also want to just give a fundraising update real quick. I know that wonderful people like Kelly Stewart have been doing some fundraising for the legal team down here. Let me just explain something to you. Mother Jones magazine, real non-scintillating publication out there. They should be ashamed of themselves, frankly. They just did a story recently that talks about the Bundys. And the thesis of the story, I think it just came out a couple days ago. The thesis of the story is the Bundys who refuse to recognize the legitimacy of the federal government are depending on the federal government for their legal defense. Now, the problem, of course, with this is really brain-off reporting, and it's just meant, by the way, to feed the monsters on the liberal left, if you will. And you know what? I say that tongue-in-cheek because a lot of these people who are liberals stand up for the Bill of Rights and believe in the Bill of Rights, and they could be our friends, and we could win them over if we spent some time responsibly engaging with them. And so I'm just playing a little bit. But this article from Mother Jones was horrible because it misses the boat completely, and it's so unintellectual that it misses the boat completely. Of course, we know our friends the Bundys do not deny the legitimacy of the federal government. They do deny the legitimacy of much of what the federal government does, which, by the way, has been the battle of patriots from the beginning, who always are advocating for liberty and restrictions on those with power to trample our liberties. So, the idea that just because somebody wants the government to respect its proper role and wants to advocate politically, socially, civically, personally, to challenge where the federal government's behavior is overstretched and overreached and tyrannical, it does not mean they don't recognize the legitimacy of the federal government. Number two, just because someone is relying on the federal government to pay for their criminal defense does not mean there's somehow a moral contradiction. Let me just give you an example. They quote Ryan Bundy in this example. Ryan Bundy has chosen to represent himself. Ryan Bundy represented himself up in Oregon. Ryan Bundy has chosen to represent himself down here in Nevada. Those of you who've been in the courtroom have seen that Ryan Bundy is doing himself and his family tremendous service. Ryan has educated himself and he comports himself well, and he has advocated responsibly and not without fault. None of us could advocate without fault, but way better than even many attorneys would advocate. And so the Mother Jones article says, yeah, but tens of thousands of dollars are being expended on Ryan's behalf. as like an indictment to show this kind of contradiction that how could a person who believes in self-reliance and freedom and capitalism and liberty take this money from the taxpayers? See, they have a guilt complex, and they're saying, so you do it too. You're no better than us. But he is better. But there's two arguments here. The first one I want to show is this. Ryan did not choose to have standby counsel. The court imposed standby counsel on him even after he asserted his right to represent himself, even after he invoked his right as explained and defined by the Supreme Court in the landmark case called Ferretta, and they imposed over his desire standby counsel. Now, I'm not debating whether that was a good idea or a bad idea, but Ryan Bundy did not ask for that money to be expended on his behalf. And yet, see, these people who want to criticize us and criticize the movement and criticize our friends, they won't make those distinctions that are very meaningful because the distinctions don't matter. They're not really trying to tell the truth. They're trying to push an agenda. That's why I'm really frustrated with Maxine at the Oregonian, because they're not helping the people. They're not helping challenge the narrative of those with power. You see, there's always in our society, when you love liberty and you battle for liberty, it doesn't matter what group you're in, we're all in the same fight for liberty. And if you don't have the press or people who are willing to speak out against those who are abusing power to encroach upon liberty, it hurts all of us. And so this Mother Jones author, I'm sure she fancies herself a liberal who's trying to help everybody, or at least help those she deems worth helping, but she's not, because she's not advocating the truth. But the other problem with this is, of course, the Bundys didn't choose to be held in prison for almost 2 years and kept from their livelihood. And so the fact that the federal government is paying for their legal defense is not an indictment of some choice they made. If they were given their own choice, they would be free, they'd be able to produce, and they'd be able to participate more in the payment of their own legal defense. Now, I also know, for a matter of fact, that Cliven Bundy and his wife Carol paid a tremendous amount of money initially for their private attorney. And I also know, for example, up in Oregon, Ammon Bundy paid for the legal team, Marcus Mumford, Morgan Philpott, and I, along with a lot of their supporters and people who donated. And that's not tax money, that's volunteer money. And that's where I want to go with this. I want to say thank you to those of you who have donated $10 or $100 or $500 or thousands of dollars, because you're demonstrating a principle that's incredible. And that is free exchange and free participation in the marketplace, whether it's to buy a good or a service or to make a donation, is powerful. And you're doing it the exact opposite way those who are hurting our liberty are doing, that compel the performance of the payment of taxes, etc. And so I just thank you sincerely for those of you who have supported to the Bundy's legal defense, for those of you who supported for my ability to get down here, for those of you who have supported Morgan Philpott in his ability to be on this case. But I want to tell you, and I don't mean to discourage you at all, but I want to tell you we can use more help. And I know as a capitalist you might be surprised that I'm saying that, and as a man it's hard to ask for help. That's just part of my DNA. But I just have to be honest with you. Let me give you an example. We just got done with jury selection. The Federal Defender's Office in this case employed a very competent, very intelligent jury consultant. And I'm not going to go into these details, but except for I want to just give you some perspective. The entire amount of money that was paid for that consultant to do essentially a week's worth of work is many, many, many times more than the amount of money that we've been able to raise for someone, for example, like Morgan Philpott and our legal team to be down here in Nevada for the whole 4 months and doing all of the work for trial. So I know there's a lot of talk out there. Usually it's not by our supporters. Kelly stole the phrase of mine earlier today, and when I told her, I said, supporters who don't support aren't, or I said something really clever, and she quoted it. Supporters who aren't supportive aren't supporting, or supporters who don't support aren't supportive, something like that. My friends, let's stop fighting with each other. I promise you that there are plenty of eyeballs on what's happening here, and the legal work that needs to be done is a mountain that is as tall as Everest, and any help that you can contribute is very much appreciated, not only by the Bundys, but by those who are working on their behalf. And so if you can help, please continue to help. Now, and for those of you who have helped, thank you. Check your email. We'll be sending out some emails to say thank you and to give you some more information about this Go Forward plan that we'll be talking about now. I want to talk to you about, I want to create some context here. A lot of you, what did I say? Supporters who don't support aren't supporters. Right. It was so much more articulate when I said it to you, Kelly. I don't know why. Sometimes scintillation only comes when it comes. So thanks for fixing me, gilding the lily there a little bit. Thank you, Kelly. A lot of you don't know what the Free Capitalist Project is. You just know that's some moniker associated with me, and you're just getting exposed to that for the first time. Let me explain something to you about capitalism and why I use the moniker Free Capitalist. And I want to talk to you about our go-forward plan, both in the United States versus Koerber and the United States versus Bundy, and as far as the Free Capitalist Project generally. This is pretty exciting, and I'm going to ask you to tune back in tomorrow, because tomorrow is a special day, which I'm going to tell you about also as we conclude here tonight. Most people have been trained, taught, and educated that capitalism is something much different than what it is. Capitalism is literally freedom, okay? Capitalism means private property. Capitalism means that you have the right to make choices. Capitalism is the system in society when free people are enabled to exercise their free choices, including on property. So in a capitalistic system, free people own the fruits of their labor. Okay? And free people own the resources used in the marketplace. Okay? Sometimes it's just called private capital. People don't understand that. Caput means head, right? The Latin etymology of this word means the system of thinking, the system of the head, the mind of man. Capitalism is not about money. Capitalism is about the free value of humans. My ability to choose what I value, your ability to choose what you value. That's why socialism, okay, in its antithesis, which wants to control the means and resources of production in the marketplace. Everybody always says capitalism is about money and socialism is about society. It's the exact opposite, right? The world is upside down, Alice. You've been trained, taught, and educated to see the exact mirror image of how it really is. Capitalism is about human life value. Go listen to my 13 principles. Socialism is about redistributing stuff and making people equal according to physical things. And they don't always admit that, and socialists don't always admit that. It takes a little time to see that through. But when you go research Karl Marx and the history of the Hegelian dialectic, you'll understand that the whole class warfare and the haves versus the have-nots, there's two views of that struggle. One view starts with the premise that the mind of man is free by nature and by right, and the other is that human beings should be made free by the distribution of physical things. Now that's a little highbrow, and that's a little philosophical. I'm not going to get into a lecture here tonight. But the reason I want to say that to you is when I use the word capitalism, I know it's provocative. And I'm trying to create a teaching moment. Now, I don't have time tonight to give you the whole history of the Free Capitalist Project, but the Free Capitalist Project is going to be moving forward. I'm going to be moving forward. Our legal team here in the United States of America versus Bundy and my legal team in the United States of America versus Koerber are going to be moving forward in a little bit of a new direction. So I wanted to give you that context because I don't invite you to turn your brain on and think about this and help us spread the word. You see, the people who are watching me right now have the opportunity to be part of something that's a new course, and I'm excited about it. And I'm hoping you'll help us spread the word, and I'm hoping you're going to help us do something different. Because, my friends, we have to do something different if we want to accomplish something that's never been accomplished before. And the task before us is something that has never been accomplished before. No one has accomplished what we have before us. There have been people like our founders who have accomplished tremendous things. There are other people in history who we can learn from who have accomplished tremendous things. But this wall that we have to climb over, this path that we have to go through, these things are new. As Jefferson would say, our future is in front of us. We have to use what we know, use the principles from the past to move forward, not constantly keep our eyes turning backwards. And one of the problems of the Liberty Movement, we spend so much time looking backwards and talking about argument between the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution and the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. We sometimes get so caught up looking backwards that we bump into the obstacles that are right in front of us that we have to surmount and overcome. And so I'm going to talk to you now about some things we're going to be doing moving forward. One of the things we have to do, because I am not enabled to be, and Morgan and Marcus and the other attorneys who work with us, we are not enabled to both be involved with political activism and in the courtrooms. There's just a division there where the ethical rules of professional conduct and the rules of the court, etc., can be used against us to keep us out of the fight. And that's what happened with me last week. There was a debate about, well, is Rick going to be in this camp or is Rick going to be in this camp? And, of course, you can imagine there are people who don't want me involved in the legal fight. There are people who don't want Morgan involved. There are people who don't want our other attorneys involved. And so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to separate this out. And so if you want to get the legal updates, if you want to understand what's happening from a legal perspective, we are not able, as a legal team, to make public statements during the course of a trial. And by the way, this is not just about the Bundys. The Bundys will tell you that. Clive Bundy himself will tell you that. It's not about Rick Koerber. It's not about any particular case. Some of you have your own cases. Because we're all in a big battle. And the sooner we realize we're in this together and we work together, the sooner our eyes can open up and you'll see what I'm about to say to you. And that is this. We're doing this for more than just this fight. Of course we want to free these men. Of course we want to win this battle. And we want to do it because it's the right thing. We want to do it to bless the lives of these men and their families. And we want to do it to build momentum in our efforts to march forward in this cause of liberty. And we want you to help us and to be part of us and to join with us, not just for this legal fight, but for the broader cause. So when I invited you earlier to consider being more engaged in the cause of liberty, I'm inviting you to be more engaged than just USA v. Bundy or USA v. Koerber or just listening here on Facebook. I'm inviting you to come together with us in a more meaningful way. And so what we're going to be doing, we're going to be creating the first online legal resource team for people who are activists but who want to be involved in helping with specific cases, like, for example, USA v. Bundy. So for those of you who have wanted to help with this particular case, USA v. Bundy, or the particular case of USA v. Koerber, or both, hi Brianna, for those of you who want to be more involved and want to help, I'm going to invite you to go to freecapitalist.com and click on the Donate tab. And of course you can donate if you want to, but go down to the bottom of the page. I've just added temporarily there a form. Please fill it out and put in your email address, and there's a title box. And I want you to put in there one word statement of what talent or what effort you think you can contribute, something you're good at, something you want to do. Maybe you don't know, and just put don't know. I guess that's 2 words. But please send us an email, because what we're going to be doing, remember, our number one priority right now is working on legal defense, and we've got a big day Tuesday. So you'll have to forgive me for not having this all launched and pretty and ready to go so you can just click a button and sit there on your couch and be a freedom warrior. I'm asking you to kind of invest with us, be a little patient here. We're taking baby steps but powerful steps forward. The first step is for you to let us know who you are. Because we can't have FBI agents and we can't have marshals and we can't have people working for the U.S. Attorney's Office, just part of our battle plan. And so we're going to separate out here. And we're going to have those of you who are interested in being part of an online legal team that will work right now on either the Bundy case or the Koerber case or any of the many, many cases we will pursue going forward. And if you want to help, please identify yourself to us. We'll actually engage in some individual vetting to make sure you're a real person, to make sure to do our best to make sure you're not just trying to scour for public information to cause mischief. Some of you who are listening know who you are. And want to make sure you're diligent in wanting to be involved. And whatever your talent is, maybe you just have some time. Maybe you're a good researcher. Maybe you're a good writer. Maybe you're good with other people. Maybe you're good at carrying a sign. Maybe you got a car you want to put a sign on, right, John? But we're going to do a new kind of activism and a new kind of organized activism. And I want to invite those of you who have asked for the last several weeks, what can we do? What more can we do? What more can we do? Okay, step number 1, separate yourself from the masses. Separate yourself from the crowd so we can start picking out people who are our friends. Okay, really. Not blowhards, right, to quote the news headline of the day. Not double agents, not talkers, but people who actually want to take a step forward. Now, that email is just going to come to me and Morgan, okay? That email is not going anywhere else. It's just coming to me and Morgan. And we will reach back out to you and give you a little bit more details about what we're doing and ask you to identify yourself for us so we can vet you a little bit. And we will invite you and explain to you what it means to be part of the first ever online legal team that we imagine creating groups of these to help us in this fight going forward for the next 4 months, but also as a model that we can use going forward to fight for liberty for others who find themselves in this situation. Because the Bundys will not be the last, and Rick Koerber will not be the last to be in this position. But if we win and we're effective, this becomes a valuable tool in the cause of freedom moving forward. So again, no more long words. That's right, James. So go to freecapitalist.com, go to the donate page. Please make a donation if you want to. But on the bottom of that page, and we'll talk more about donations tomorrow, but on the bottom of that page, it doesn't require donation or anything. It just requires that you put your real first name, your real last name, and your real email address. And then the title, give us a clue on kind of what your skill set is or what you think you might be able to do. And if you don't know, you can say don't know, but try to give us some indication of what you think you might be able to contribute, because that'll help us. So that's step 1. Now, tomorrow is November 5th. Tomorrow's a big day. some of you don't know the history of November 5th, and some of you don't know why that's a significant day for me, and that's okay. But tomorrow's a big day, and tomorrow we're going to do a more formal explanation of this new kind of activism that's going to include this new Liberty Law Center that we are organizing and these new online legal teams that we're organizing. It is quite aggressive. It is a big deal. It's something Morgan and I and a group of legal minds have been working on for some time. If you want to see more of what happened up in Oregon, you've got to support people who are going to make things like what happened up in Oregon possible. And we can't rely on the federal defenders, and some of those people are good. And we can't rely on one lone wolf here and one lone wolf there, although thank God that there are some good men and women out there who are dedicated to fighting for freedom. We want to unite with those who are dedicated to fighting for freedom, but we're going to not just wait around for other people to hand us liberty. We've got some ideas for a new kind of activism, and it's not just legal, right? This is just step one I'm telling you about tonight because it was part of my update. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you a little bit bigger perspective. I'm not going to go into great detail because, again, we're going to pull out and try to pull out people who are our friends and then talk to them. We're going to leave behind the people who really aren't our friends. And let's just be honest, right? Let's grow up. Let's step it up a little bit. Not everybody who's engaging with us online is our friend, clearly. Now, Jewel tells a story, and I don't know the story very well, so Jewel, you have to forgive me. But she tells a story about a speaker, I think it was a youth speaker, who was speaking to a very large group of youth. And it was a motivational speaker. And everybody expected this youth speaker to really get the young people excited about being involved in the future. And he asked a question, and I'm going to not tell this as well as others do, and not as well as my wife does. She's not only better looking, she's much better at telling stories like this than I am. I miss you, sweetheart. And the way the story goes is this guy says to the youth, I want you to raise your hand if you were bold enough to believe that you could change the world. I want you to raise your hand if you yourself want to do something with your life and you believe that you could actually change the world, make the world better by your own effort. And according to the story, a handful of kids raised their hand, maybe 20, right, out of a big auditorium full of kids. And he then asked those kids to come forward. He created a circle with some chairs, had them sit down and said, okay, I want to talk to you. And the whole point was, the reason I share that story with you is, there's a lot of people sometimes that are sitting here listening, and there are a lot of people that it feels good to be associated with people who are in the cause of liberty, and that's fine. But one of the things I'm saying in a subtle way tonight, it'll be not so subtle tomorrow, is it's time. It's time for us, starting with Jewel and I, to step up our game and separate out those who really want to act and do and use their talents freely in this work. We've got to be informed, educated, and organized, my friends. So, with that said, please, if you want to be part of an audience that's more selective than just this general Facebook audience, and you want to be part of, or you want to even know about it so you can make a better decision of this go-forward plan, would you please go to freecapitalist.com, click on the donate link across the menu bar on the top, and on that page, when you get there, just scroll down and you'll see an activism section where it asks for your first name, your last name, and your email and a title. Again, that information only goes to Morgan and I, and we will gather that information and we will contact you separately and start through that process. So, my friends, that is the message I had prepared for you tonight, and I will simply end by saying a lot of work before us. It is an overwhelming task. It is impossible to do without miracles. But one of the miracles is when like-minded people come together and use their talents and synergize. And that's what we're doing. We are stepping it up a notch, and we're going to do something. I told some of you that the Free Capitalists hadn't been very innovative and very busy for about 10 years because I've been busy fighting the government. Well, I don't think the taste of the Free Capitalists is ever going to get out of those mouths or those pariahs. But Jewel and I, we're ready to move forward, and so are the people who move with us. So I just invite you to consider my invitation. Those of you with ears to hear, I hope you've heard. If not, give it another try. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. Here's my last invitation to you. Fill up this broadcast tomorrow, 9 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Mountain time, Oh, it may be daylight savings too. So remember that. But I'll be here 9 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow, and it's November 5th, and we're going to announce and lay out a framework for something that's it's a big deal, and we hope some of you will join with us. So with that said, I'll take some questions before we end the broadcast tonight. So here's what I'm going to do. I know I probably missed a lot, and if you want to come online with me, if you want to join in the broadcast, just let me know as well. But I'll start watching the comments here for questions. So with that said, keep your brain on, my friends, and it's been a pleasure here to be with you tonight. What questions can I answer? I think that's pretty bright too. Saturn's a little bright over there. Melissa, thank you. Is this a call to gather? We're not gathering physically, Joshua, and we're not revealing all the details tonight. But be here tomorrow and we'll talk more about it. Twyla, I don't know if I did get your message. Did Ammon and Ryan, let's see, hold on. What's this question? Did Ammon and Ryan, how do I get these questions better? Did Ammon and Ryan finally get, Ammon and Ryan are still being held in the holding cells. Yes, Brianna, thank you. I also know the Bundy family is asking for any who would to please join with them in fasting and or prayer tomorrow. For the Bundys and those who are about to go to trial with them and for their families. You're a convicted felon. Should you remain disassociated? Well, if you want to do felonious behavior, Mark, please stay away. If you do not want to do felonious behavior and you'd like to work with people who love liberty, we invite you to make yourself known and let's talk. How do I feel about the jury selection? Listen, juries are funny things. Number one, jury selection, there's a lot of chance involved. You do your best. But the whole principle here is to try to get as many fair-minded people as possible. I feel really confident that there are some good men and women on this jury. I actually like the diversity on the jury. I think they're going to be sympathetic to the narrative. I think they're going to be willing to hear the truth. I think we've got our work to do to overcome some presumptions. And I think it is going to take the miracle that comes in these kind of situations. But overall, I definitely think a lot of hard work was done to get the best jury we could get under these circumstances. And I think there are several people that we're very hopeful about on the jury. And, again, kind of like this, there are some that I think will step forward and lead that jury. And so we do have an uphill climb because there's going to be some kind of initial bias and presumptions that we're going to have to overcome. But, that's not unusual in the court system. So. He said the truth is not narrative, it's the truth. Jill, I'm not sure what you mean there. Narrative, when I use the term narrative, I mean an explanation. Because truth doesn't ever exist outside of its context. In other words, you can take truth out of context and it distorts the truth. And so when I talk about narrative, I talk about the ability to explain, like when we take an oath, when we're called to testify in a court of law, and we say tell the truth and the whole truth. We can't be context droppers. The enemies of liberty are context droppers, and they fancy themselves not liars if they tell the truth out of context. So by narrative, I mean the context that goes with every truth. Okay, I missed a couple questions here. Any possible plants in the jury pool? Well, Chad, it's always possible, but we've done things to identify them, and we will be doing some other things as responsible legal teams do to protect the rights of these clients. And I'm confident that we can do a good job of that. All right, I am going to go for just a couple more minutes. Any other questions? Let's see. How many days do you think opening argument? Just one, maybe 1.5. You have a word with it. I know. Other people, words are funny things. They're like tools. It's like people saying they have trouble with guns. Yeah, I understand that. But a gun's just a thing. It's how people use them that create the trouble. By the way, Robin, thank you very much. There's an essay, by the way, if you want to download, Jill, the Free Capitalist Primer, which is a free book, there's an essay called The Words and Language of the Revolution, and we talk about that. But I understand. That's why I took the time to explain myself. Let's see. You're not going to bring about any additional scrutiny, Mark. Free people are free people. Your human life value is what you make of it. Again, please identify yourself. We're happy to talk with you. Will I be at the courthouse Tuesday? Yes, absolutely. My plan is to be at the courthouse every day. Yeah, telling true stories is the power of a leader. That's what creates culture. That's what creates movements. True stories. Sorry. Things are different in court. Yeah, that's true. Sorry, Jeff, I can't read your old question. I'm not sure what's going on with my phone. I am not familiar with that story. Let's see. Yes, Melissa, I am going to go on trial another time. They're not done with me. I'm like the. Have you ever familiar with the children's story David and the Phoenix? I'm the Phoenix, and they're like the scientist who's continuing to engage in the delusion that he can eat me. Yeah, my case has been going on in one form or the other since 2005. There is court Tuesday through Thursday this week. That is correct. When you say you wish I would listen to James, Marty, I'm listening to everyone, and if anybody wants to talk with me, they can do so civilly and responsibly. My contact information is at freecapitalist.com. My email is available. You don't have to wish. You can make it happen. You said, what was the book and site you referenced? Well, I referenced several books, Lorette. You'll have to give me more context. I'm not sure. Maybe somebody else can answer your question because they might remember exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, I agree, Jill. The media, when you say the media has an untrue narrative, the question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to be victims and whine about it like everybody? We're not just little kids. We don't just have to sit here and complain. We can change. We can do things. We can advocate, and we can adjust and move, and that's the next step, right? Just calling out the problem is the first step, but recognizing it and moving beyond it is what creates victory. So we're not just victims. Maybe, Jake, maybe they're asking about the Free Capitalist Primer. If you want a copy of the Primer, let me know. Drop me an email. I'll make sure you get a copy. Thank you. If this is a hung jury, will they be tried again? That's up to the prosecutors. Hung juries are interesting things, and the laws apply differently depending on why a jury is hung and what leads, for example, to a mistrial. Let's see. At this point, my friends, we're advocating for an acquittal, and we're going to keep our eyes focused on that. Those of you who are familiar with the wise teachings of Norman Vincent Peale and positive imaging, that's where we're at right now. All right, my friends, keep your brain on. Join me and tell your friends. There are going to be some scintillating free capitalist announcements and some excellent information about our battle plan and how we're moving forward. Tomorrow, November 5th, 2017, it's a big day. If you're one who likes to be part of new beginnings and be at the beginning of something that we think is significant, be here tomorrow, 9 o'clock Pacific time. Thanks, guys. All the best.